As we enter into worship, put away the pressures of the world that ask us to perform, to take up masks, to put on brave fronts. Silence the voices that ask you to be perfect. This is a community of compassion and welcoming. You do not have to do anything to earn the love contained within these walls. You do not have to be braver, smarter, stronger, better than you are in this moment to belong here with us. You only have to bring the gift of your body, no matter how able, your seeking mind, no matter how busy, your animal heart, no matter how broken. Bring all that you are and all that you love to this hour together. Let us worship together. We Come Together Without Creed by Maureen Killoran. In this free church, we come together without creed, focusing instead on the core values of justice, equity, and compassion, of mutual acceptance of our diverse ways of being as we seek to connect ourselves more fully with the unfolding truths of life and of our world. We come together in shared conviction that all people deserve a voice in matters that concern them, and that it is up to each of us to protect the rights of all, particularly those who, for whatever reason, have long held in silence. We come together in the stubborn belief that community is possible and that peace is more than a dream. We commit together to affirm in our actions as well as our words the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. We come together in awareness of our interdependence with all humanity and with the wider web of existence, for that too is what is meant by we. In this free church, we come together without creed, believing that the way we live in the world bears testament to the value of our beliefs. We light this chalice as a beacon of hope for who have gathered here this day, for all who have ever walked through our doors, for those who may yet find this spiritual home, and for those whose paths will never come our way. For all this, and for all those things we dare to hope and dream, we kindle our chalice flame this day. Good morning, and welcome everyone to Eastrose Fellowship Unitarian Universalist. I'm Cynthia Hopkins, your worship leader today. If you are visiting us for the first time, we're very glad you are here. We acknowledge the lands where our fellowship gathers and that are home now to our widespread communities. Going back at least 13,000 years, these lands were the traditional village sites of Multnomah, Wasco, Wishram, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas, bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Malala, and many other peoples who made their lives here. We thank the original caretakers of this land and their descendants who are among us still. In peace, may we share this land and honor one another. Well, I know some of you had a rough entry into YouTube this morning. We had some technical difficulties, but we've got them resolved pretty close to on time. And it's very interesting here in the chapel, very different from how it's been the last 6 or 7 weeks with people here filling the pews. So before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to review certain changes that are happening to our safety protocols at Eastrose in light of the surge of Omicron cases in our area. The only people in the building besides me today are those who are also involved in the production of the service. We have Mary Reese at piano, Phyllis Adams, John Netherton, Robin Adey, and at our technical controls. Our speaker, Reverend Walter, is in Austin, Texas, and all of the rest of you are probably in your homes at this moment, once again attending service via your computer, laptop, or phone. For the remainder of January, today is what services will look like. By the start of February, though, the board will make a redetermination about can we open the building safely again. So this is a temporary measure, and we will be in each other's company again soon. I am confident of this. In the meantime, we will take advantage of the excellent technology we now have that allows us to continue to have Sunday worship streamed live from Eastrose. Since we are online, I want you to please be sure to follow instructions during offering to donate through our website donation page. And something new, at the end of the service, after I've made a few announcements, you can exit YouTube and log on to Zoom to gather for conversation together. If you do not have the Zoom link, you can find it on our website and also in our pedals. Today's service is the first one where we are connecting a speaker off-site and projecting her onto our big screen here in the chapel. Our technical people are getting experience how to do this ongoing in the future. And when this pandemic is finally over, we now have the capability to present speakers to you here at Eastrose from virtually anywhere, whether you are right here in the chapel or if you are one of those people who needs to be home that day. So now for our speaker. Returning electronically to the Eastrose pulpit today is Reverend Aaron J. Walter, the affiliated community minister of Wildflower Unitarian Universalist Church in Austin, Texas. Reverend Walter serves as the acting executive director for the Texas Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry, winner of the 2017 Sermon Award for the UU Women's Federation, and a former YMCA director. She is also the singer-songwriter bassist for band Parker Woodland, and teaches community Zumba as a joy practice. This is one very busy lady. Reverend Walter's sermon today is entitled, "The People We Are A-Changin', Reflections on the Third Principle of Unitarianism." Our opening hymn today is number 360, "Here We Have Gathered." The words will be on the screen for all of you at home to joyfully sing along without your masks. A religious community is like a river formed from the many streams of our lives that meet and merge and flow to the sea. As members and friends of this religious community, we share our time and energy, our creativity, imagination, vision, our talents, skills, and gifts, and the streams of our individual lives create a river that is both deep and broad. A river that is made of many streams, sustains life, and refreshes the land through which it flows. But the river of this community also depends on our shared financial support that makes real our shared values and vision. Half of this week's offering, and throughout the month of January, supports the nonprofit Snow Cap Community Charities. You can donate right now by clicking on the link provided on our Eastrose donation page or on our website. We will now receive an offering for the support of this religious community and its work in the world. You are invited to give generously and joyfully as you are able. For our offertory today, we have a very special performance live by Reverend Aaron J. Walter.
Good morning. Am I coming through nice and clear to you from Austin? I'm so grateful to be with you today, to get to share the spirit of this beautiful day in song, in prayer, in reflection. The song that I want to share with you is one that I wrote right before the pandemic, and which has taken on many new layers of meaning for me in these last couple of years. It's called First One to Fall Asleep Wins, and it's about coming to terms with how much we need each other. Also, since we're talking about growth in our service today, one of my areas of growth during this pandemic was to learn to play guitar just enough to accompany me. I am normally a bass player. So I share with you my own process of growth as a musician and learning to play just a little bit of sparkly guitar. So here we go. Standing in the middle of the street under a full moon, wishing that you didn't have to leave, at least not this soon. I can feel your heart beating inside my chest. Whatever this is, there's no way it's for the best. Where did you come from? I didn't need anyone. Now the first one to fall asleep wins. The first one to fall asleep wins. Just the other day, things were normal. Everything was fine. Next thing you know, we turn around and mark breaths like a lifetime. Then summer comes on the radio, and I watch for you to pull free. I promise myself I won't let this ruin me. Yeah, you swear to yourself, whatever this is, it won't ruin me. Where did you come from? I didn't need anyone. Now the first one to fall asleep wins. The first one to fall asleep wins. Where did you come from? I don't want to need anyone. to fall asleep wins, and it's getting easier, this giving in, this giving in. I give thanks to my daughter for lending me the sparkle guitar that we love so much, and to all of you for being here today, for the opportunity to share one of my spiritual practices, which is this process of music making. I'm going to set my guitar down gently and invite you to be gentle with yourselves, center yourselves for prayer and reflection. Can you be even 1% more comfortable, as my friend Reverend Kim out of New Jersey will say? This time is for you. All right, let's get comfortable together. Will you take a breath with me? And maybe one more. Spirit of life and love, great mystery that holds us all. Our friend, our God, our divine, our earth that speaks all languages and knows no man-made borders. Thank you for this day. Thank you for the chance to try new things in the face of struggle, knowing that this means we are alive and we are a community and we are not giving up. Thank you for everyone involved in this service today, for the ways that they are going with the flow, and for the silver lining of getting to visit you all the way from Texas. I ask, Holy One, heal those who are sick, in spirit, in body, in mind. Comfort those of us who are grieving, feeling estranged, alone. Those of us who are joyful today, may we feel our joy amplified in community. May our joy be a light for those who need one, calling us all through the tunnel of this time into what is next, into what is being born. I pray that we may all reach for our spiritual practices. As you heard, mine are music and dance, but I know that each of you has yours too. May we reach for them. May we make an offering of them. May we share. Where there is loss, let love be stronger. Where there is anger, let healing come to rest. With deepest gratitude for this community and how we carry forward. Blessed be, and amen. So I'm wearing the stole today that my family gave to me. It reminds me of the scripture that joy cometh in the morning, or the song lyric from Florence and the Machine, it is darkest before the dawn. We are on a journey together as Unitarian Universalists in this time of pandemic that sometimes we think is almost over, and then we are asked to change and adapt and grow again. And I'm here today to think with you, feel with you, be with you about our third principle of Unitarian Universalism, which I have to tell you, I have really fallen in love with during this pandemic. The third principle speaks to acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. And I want to talk a little bit about our principles as a whole before we dig deeper into the third one. I was surprised to find out, as a lifelong UU myself, that the principles were adopted in 1985 and revised in 1995. So I'm older than the principles, yet I've been a Unitarian Universalist all this time. And this is not to say that the principles aren't deeply sacred and connected to something old. We come from a long tradition, Judeo-Christian heritage, also coming from lots of sources, our sources of lived experience, of earth and world wisdom traditions, of music and poetry and science. So while our principles as named may be on the newer side, we know that they are connected to something deep. But I did find it interesting, and it's good to keep in mind that the principles are evolving as many of our congregations adapt the eighth principle that relates to multicultural community, anti-racism, and anti-oppression. But for the years that I have been so aware and caring for our principles, really the first and the seventh felt like the pillars to me: the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and the respect for the interdependent web of life that we are all a part. So the third principle has passed me by a little bit sometimes, but I recently just have really come to love it. What I love about it especially is that we have acceptance and growth in the same place, not just in the same set of principles, but in the same principles. So we're working to both accept and grow at the same time. I love that. So our Unitarian Universalist principles are meant to be moral guides, strong values within a living tradition. Reverend Barbara Wells Ten Hove explains the principles are not dogma or doctrine, but rather a guide for those of us who choose to join and participate in Unitarian Universalist religious community. You have chosen this faith. You have chosen to be together in this way today. No one is making you be here. No one is threatening you. And that alone is something to remember and celebrate and cherish and share with the wider world. Now, in her essay from 2009 in the UU World titled, "Who Says Unitarian Universalism's Principles Are Easy?" one of my friends and someone I look up to in a way as a mentor, Reverend Meg Barnhouse, who is the senior minister of First UU Austin here in Texas, the church that I grew up in, though she came to be a minister here much after I had grown out of the church and moved to Chicago, in fact. But Reverend Barnhouse has a great piece about our principles. Who says that they're easy? And she says, let's stick something onto the end of every principle to challenge those of us who think being a UU is easy. Those of us who say you can believe what you want. Not so true. She says, let's add something to the end, much like you would with a fortune cookie that would say you would add in the bathtub or between the sheets. Do you remember that old joke? Well, for our principles, what if we add beginning in our homes and congregations at the end of each one? Let's see how that goes. She says, then we'd be faced with affirming things like the goal of peace, liberty, and justice for all, beginning in our homes and congregations. That peace, liberty, and justice for all is in the sixth principle, in case you need a refresher. But she says, everyone who has raised children knows that peace is often at odds with liberty at home, and that justice demands a disturbance of the peace. She says to put those three together in one principle is outrageous and lovely. It's easier to think about working toward them in a global context than in the context of Cheerios and pajamas, car keys, and cleaning up one's room. Now, for the fellow pandemic parents here, can I get an amen? I have a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, and these words that Reverend Barnhouse are saying about how this is to do all of this in the home and in the congregation is outrageous and lovely. I feel it so deeply. When my children were younger, I used to say, if only I had a fraction of the patience and compassion in my home that I have for the wider world, we would be in good shape. So for the parents out there, especially the ones of the littlest ones, the ones who are not old enough yet to be approved for a vaccine, my heart is with you in this time. I know that it's not easy to be living our values at home some days, some Cheerios, some pajamas. And the same is true for our congregations. It can be so hard to be our best selves when we are trying to keep a community together, even in hard times. So I hope that you are appreciating each other. I hope that you are appreciating the lay leaders and the tech people and the music folks and anyone who is doing anything. I imagine at Eastrose, that's pretty much everybody. It takes everybody right now. And there's a parable, the parable of the choir, that talks about how a choir can sustain the most beautiful note for a very long time because different people will take a breath at a different moment while others keep singing. So I hope that you think of yourselves in this congregation as a choir, where sometimes you'll be the one singing and sometimes you'll need to take a breath and rest. I hope that there is an ebb and flow going here where those of you who are volunteering also get time to be nourished, where there is time for both acceptance and just being with what is. And there's also that time for the growth, for the work. I see that in our third principle, and I give thanks for it. I wanted to share with you some examples of our third principle from community ministry. So I'm what's called an affiliated community minister of Wildflower Church, as you heard. What that means is I have a ministry, my paid professional work that is outside the church, coming from another source typically, but that I'm in alignment with my church's mission and we support each other. And that's my spiritual home, Wildflower. And I share the mission. Wildflower's mission is growing spiritually together, spreading love, justice, and joy. And so as a community minister, formerly as a director at the YMCA, and that job was lost in the pandemic. And now as the executive director of the Texas Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry, which is our state action network as a denomination, work I am very proud to do and which is large and daunting. In that community ministry, one of the ways that I seek to grow is to ask my community, how are you growing? How are you accepting? How are you living these principles? So I recently asked, and like we said in our sources, this is a living tradition, and we use lived experience as one of our sources. So again, as I'm seeing some of these like amens about parenting and teenagers and three-nagers, a three-nager, I think that's a great term for a toddler. Drawing upon your lived experience in how you learn and grow is a big one. But so I asked folks in my Facebook community for their experiences with the third principle. How have they come to accept something, or how have they grown, and how might those two be related? So I want to share with you a few examples. A friend of mine named Roanna said, I'm constantly growing or seeking to grow. She says, every day I try to challenge something I feel or think. I have to pause and say, wow, to her, that every day she tries to challenge something she feels or thinks. That's really powerful. She says, this year I had a breakthrough with anxiety and my adolescent baggage. A lot of us carry that, don't we? She says, I glimpsed who I was or could have been without my adolescent need for protection. She says, now I have to maintain this new awareness, which is daily work, showing myself grace and giving grace to others. This is really powerful to me, this idea that we have daily work to maintain our awareness of who we are and what baggage we bring, and how we show ourselves grace and give grace to others. Now, I love chat as a silver lining in this virtual ministry space. So I invite you, please feel free to share in the chat if you're watching on YouTube. What is a way that you show yourself grace? And what is a way that you give grace to others? Where are you needing grace? Longing for grace? What baggage are you carrying that you need help with accepting? I invite you to share anything in the chat that's percolating, coming up for you. This is shared space together. I asked Roanna, what does she do to keep these daily senses of the work, of the grace, of what she carries? And she said she listens to Fiona Apple's album, Fetch the Bolt Cutters. And I love that, to have a musical touchstone. Do you have a piece of music you can listen to when you need to get grounded, when you need to remind yourself of a piece of acceptance or of the work of growth that you're trying to do? I think I have a lot of music for that. I like to make playlists. She also says she uses therapy to help her come back to that. But I love this idea that music or a piece of art could help us reground. So that's one lived experience source from my community that I wanted to share with you and ask you to think about. And then I have two that kind of go together, but they're like two sides of a coin, from my colleague at the Y, Eleanor, and my friend from Chicago, Jacqueline, who both generously gave these answers. Eleanor says, my biggest growth spurts always seem to come via incredibly difficult situations. Things, she says, you'd classify probably as devastating. She says, in turn, I've gotten a kind of appreciation for world-shattering events in my life. She says she appreciates lessons from them, the opportunities to change and grow, but she also wants to acknowledge that those things are still devastating and that some very privileged pieces of her life have carried her through, that she could have experienced worse, and she can't take all the credit, she says, for coming out of those situations stronger. I find that interesting. What she's saying is that she has resources and support, that it's not the devastation alone that brought her strength. And that's important for Unitarian Universalism. Our theology is not that you must suffer on the cross, as some theology says, in order to be saved or redeemed. We may grow from struggle. We absolutely are called to learn from hard times and support each other through hard times, but that it's not the suffering itself, but the community, the support, the resources that are actually what bring us through. Jacqueline says something related. She says that she has grown through experiencing more good things, more love, more meaningful relationships, romantic or platonic, and finding new ways of seeking joy. She says, adding suffering and struggle to pre-existing, long-standing suffering such as depression has not been a recipe for growth. She says, I've been able to accept myself better and be more kind to myself after being strongly validated by friends whose opinions, wisdom, and perspective I value. Having someone else in my life who's been through a similar struggle and can tell me, you have been really sick, you have legitimate mental illness, it's bad, and you're not making it up. That has helped her develop strength and acceptance, to have people see her for who she is and love and encourage her. So this brings me again to that third principle of our faith: acceptance and growth. It is such a powerful thing to accept someone else, accept yourself, accept our community, accept our world, to face what is true and real and hard that we are going through, alongside the joys as well. And then say, I love myself, I love you, I love this church, I love this world so much, and I see where we can grow, or I see where I can grow. My dear friend and colleague, Reverend Ninan Soto, who serves the First Unitarian Church in Oakland, California, has long had a phrase that's so dear to my heart, which is, I love you so much, and you have some work to do. It's such a delight to me to hear something phrased that way, that it's this both and, not either or. I love you so much, and you have some work to do. So I wonder if we can imagine saying these things to ourselves, to our church community, and to our world, like a mantra, like a meta meditation that the Buddhists use. I'm going to do it now, and I'm going to invite you to do it with me. I'm going to hold myself as I appreciate myself. And I say to myself, I love you so much, and you've got some work to do. And for our churches right now, maybe for Eastrose, we can say it just for Eastrose. I love Eastrose so much, and we have some work to do. And for our whole world out there, I love the world so much, and there is work to do. That is our third principle. And it gives us an opportunity to accept and let go of some of the judgment, to have that grace and understand we have work to do. We have anti-racism and anti-oppression work to do. We have learning to do to be a church in this blended, multi-platform, tech, pandemic world. Are we going to give up over all this? Absolutely not. And you're not. And so we have to accept where we are and adjust sometimes and have that work to do. I want to thank all of you who are sharing some of your spiritual practices in the chat, who have been in conversation. I also can't wait to get to visit with you in the Zoom afterward about this. And I want to share one last story with you. But first, a quote from one of our UU ministers, Reverend Mark Bellatini. For religion to be significant, it has to provide more than the comforts of community. It also has to provide opportunities for deepening, for what I call spiritual growth, and the casting down of false images and stereotypes which hurt us all. A good religion has to open us to the real diversity of our modern world. Provide more than the comforts of community. Call us to grow. So here's our last story. Again, from our wisdom source of lived experience. This story also comes from the community when I asked, how have you experienced acceptance and growth? And I'm asking you, as I'm telling this story, please feel free to share in the chat. How have you experienced acceptance and growth as they relate to each other? Or is there a story that's bubbling up on your heart about your own sense of where you need to be accepted and where you are called to grow? Please, you are welcome to engage in the chat. I imagine it's like we're in the sanctuary and you're calling out your amens and your yes and everything. You can share in the chat. So this story from my friend Xiaomin Shre. Xiaomin is someone I know through work with the Texas Civil Rights Project. And Xiaomin shares this story with generosity and permission, as do all of the people in this sermon, knowing and hoping that you will take this story in and that it will reach your heart. Xiaomin says, when I was in college and starting my transition was when I finally found the transgender community. I really grew into the person that I am during that time because it was during that transition when I was finally comfortable as myself and how I presented. I grew from someone who couldn't speak in front of others, hid from any kind of spotlight, avoided any sort of situations where there are strangers, to someone who now doesn't have many problems with that because I'm confident in myself and who I am now. I didn't have acceptance from my blood family, he says, but the support I received from my friends that turned into family solidified for me that love is what makes a family. Through my transition process, I've learned to be more open-minded, especially since I came from a very closed-minded upbringing and just accepting of everyone. So I want to pause the story. Xiaomin has more to say, but I want to lift up here what he says, which is that as he came to be accepted, as he came to feel accepted and to accept himself, then he became more open-minded, let go of the closed-minded upbringing he felt he had and became more accepting of everyone. What a gift and what honesty for him to share. He could say, oh, people were judgmental of me, but I was always accepting of others. No, he's being truthful here that that experience of not being accepted and not really accepting himself yet also yielded a sense of judgment and non-acceptance in him toward others. And when that acceptance comes that we long for so much, it opens up something in us. And so I thank him for naming that here. Now, here's where I want to go back to Reverend Bellatini's mention that we want to be present to the true diversity of community. I'm going to be naming a couple of cultural backgrounds Xiaomin is naming, and I'm reading. And we know as I name these, Xiaomin's religious tradition and cultural tradition, that his experience is not the experience of all, and we're not seeking to judge all from these perspectives. And at the same time, we do hold the truth of Xiaomin's lived experience, which was this. He writes, "My parents are Christians, and that affected their ability to accept me greatly, on top of being Asians, and they were pretty close-minded to begin with." He says, "I was kicked out when I first came out as a lesbian right after high school. I didn't know there was a trans community yet because I was so sheltered. There was constant emotional and mental abuse because they suspected I was anything but a straight cis female." And I also want to pause and say, my heart feels tender knowing that this may hit close to home for some of you, as I know it does for some in my family and many of my friends. And so I share this knowing and hoping that if this hits close to home, that you will take care of yourself in this time and breathe through it with me, or take care of yourself as you need. Xiaomin says, "After I left the house, I pretty much was against religion. I didn't believe in anything but actual people." He said, "I still don't have a relationship with my family because when I came out as trans, I told them about my struggles with suicide and depression before accepting myself. And they told me that they wished I had died because I brought shame on them and made them look like bad parents to the people of my church." He told me that he's not sure he'll ever really feel connected to religion or a higher power, but that he appreciates the chance to share with people in a context like this, and to know that there are people who do consider themselves religious, who are welcoming and loving. And it's a hard story for me to share because this is a person I know and love, and to think of him having gone through such pain breaks my heart. But I share it with you because Xiaomin is a young person. These are things that have happened in recent years. And so what I want to ask you, and I think I've probably asked you this when I visited you before, they say that ministers have one sermon in them and we're giving it in all these different ways. My one sermon to you is this: the world needs Unitarian Universalism. The world needs us to let the world know that we're here, so that people who have been deeply hurt or who are still yearning to feel accepted for who they are can find a home and a place. As Xiaomin said, love is what makes the family. Love is what makes this church, not creed. Love and action make this church. And so I say to you, I need this congregation to fly the flag of love and welcome and acceptance big and wide, especially at this time when you are going back to virtual, so that people can find you from all over. Please invite people. There are people who need to know you're here. It's a gift to have a place to be able to share these stories of vulnerable, truthful acceptance and growth. We need more people to know that we are here. So I thank you for the chance to share these stories from Eleanor, from Jacqueline, from Xiaomin, from Rowana, and from my own experience of just needing a place to hold all that is during this time. It is a difficult time, and if today is a very hard day for you, I hope that tomorrow's sunrise brings more joy. And if today is a wonderful day for you, I hope you will share it with this community as we accept and we grow together. Amen. Blessed be. In that spirit, in that spirit of sharing, of acceptance, of growth, the next part of our service will be joys and concerns.
Reverend Aaron, you came through loud and clear here at Eastrose, and I want to give you a personal amen, and I want to say that the sun is shining outside here in Portland today after we've had a lot of rain, and you have brought the sunshine into our chapel. And I am so delighted that you were our first speaker here in our new hybrid environment. It was lovely. It was joyous. And I can't wait until all the rest of you are able to come back in person so we can see speakers like Reverend Aaron here on the big screen, but it felt very intimate. And also so that we can see each other again. I am going to depart from my script that you've heard many times before about going into joys and concerns, and just say, I know it's going to be difficult for sharing for a while in this environment of closed chapel. And so what we're going to do is go into our water ritual, and Mary's going to be putting in some pebbles representing joys and concerns, and I'm going to just announce them generally. For all of you who have birthdays this month, happy, joyous birthday, and we celebrate the joy of your birth. I have a personal joy. Next Sunday is my 41st anniversary to my wonderful husband, Tom, and we're going to be celebrating it with a brief trip out of town. And for all of you that have anniversaries, I wish you a wonderful continued love and support. It is a sorrow that we've had to close the church. I am very sad that I can't see my friends here today. But I am really, really full of joy that we have this wonderful new system. The sound in here is fabulous. I hope it is as wonderful at your end as it is here. We have a joy that we have been able to find one of our own to hire as our tech person, John Netherton. This is his first day officially on the job here at Eastrose, although he was here working yesterday on the rehearsal as well. So that is a huge, huge step for this church. And we have taken some pictures of our new tech area in the back of the chapel. It looks fabulous, and that's a joy. I think I have more joys and concerns at this moment after hearing Reverend Aaron speak. But I know there are concerns out there, those of you who may not feel well. Some of you may have COVID or have family with COVID, and we honor that. This last few days, I've been remembering my friend Diana, who passed away from COVID last year, my very dearest friend in the world. I still can't talk about her without crying. And I know that a lot of us lost friends. So we honor and celebrate that. And so finally, I am going to ask Mary to put in the heartstone, representing all of those joys or sorrows that are unspoken for whatever reason that you're holding in your heart. And let's just take a moment of silence to absorb it all. Thank you, Mary. We're going to go to our closing hymn now. And I think it's appropriate for all that is our life. It's number 128. So those of you at home, please sing along to the words on the screen. Thank you, Mary. When you all get back into the chapel, you will be able to hear how beautiful this piano playing sounds. It's now time to extinguish our chalice. We have basked in the warmth and beauty of this flame and this community. As the chalice flame is extinguished, let it carry its glow within. Let us kindle new sparks within these walls and beyond. And now, Reverend Aaron will send us out with a benediction, but stay with me for a minute for some announcements.
Thank you all so much for the opportunity to be with you today. My rescue dog, my pandemic husky, Spur, has come in for the benediction with us. Another one of the silver linings of being with you from home. I want to express gratitude for Reverend Patty for having me in the virtual pulpit, for Phyllis, Mary, Cynthia, John, everyone involved. And I apologize if I don't have all the names. I know this is a team effort, and I thank you for your spirits and your work today. For our benediction, I invite you to put your hands out and imagine whose hand you might be holding when we're together again in person, or to hold a hand if someone nearby is willing. I share with you the spirit of a favorite poem. I won't read you the whole thing, but I invite you to go look for An Invitation to Brave Space by Mickey Scott Bay Jones, which I read from in the book Holding Change by Adrienne Marie Brown, a favorite for right now and always. But Mickey Scott Bay Jones says, "We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know." Spirit of life and love, may we cherish that opportunity, that responsibility, in the spirit of our faith, to accept ourselves and one another, and maybe not just accept, but even cherish ourselves and one another and our communities and this world just the way we are. And then, with great joy and hope and determination, invite ourselves to keep growing. May we be surrounded in love and healing where we need it. May joy keep rising in the morning. Amen. Blessed be. And again, please stay for the announcements and for Zoom coffee hour.
Thank you, Reverend Aaron. Okay. Oh, actually, I'm a little early. I have to let Mary do the postlude. There we go. Joyful ending. Okay, I'd like to add my big thanks to all the people who made the service today possible, particularly in light of the really short notice on the church closing. Our speaker, Reverend Aaron Walter, pianist Mary Reese, our AV technicians, John Netherton, Phyllis Adams, and Robin Eady, our technical advisor and trainer. And I also need to encourage all of you who are with us today who are not already a chalice lighter to please become one. The reason we have all this wonderful new capability is because chalice lighters gave us an enormous grant to do this, to serve as an example for other folks about how we can go about bringing streaming online services in a small church environment. And the current quarterly call for the chalice lighters is money, the second half of it, that is going to come back to us here at Eastrose to finish out the rest of this project. So please, I challenge you to go out, and if you're not a chalice lighter yet, please do so. Next Sunday, our own Reverend Patty Pomerantz returns to the pulpit, and her sermon is entitled, "What is Religion?" The worship leader is Char Woods. And we have come now to the end of today's service. If you wish to join the Zoom Cafe conversation, get out of YouTube and log into the Zoom link that you got in the email, or if you don't have that in front of you, go to our website and you'll find it there. And with that, we'll see you later.